Welcome to the Pastor with No Answers. The plan for this episode was to have a lively talk between two familiar voices on this podcast. Chip Judd, one that we talk to often about mental health, counseling, and theological issues, and our friend Godless from the Metal Sucks podcast. He's an intellectual that is well-versed in philosophy and science, and he's come on our podcast to argue against the existence of God. Unfortunately, you're not going to get that conversation here. So we basically had these two on. One thing led to another, and Godless aborted the conversation. In his defense, he was in Ireland, and it was pushing 1 a.m. when we started. Obviously tired. I also feel like Chip he was put in a position where he had to quickly figure out a balance between going with the flow and not allowing himself to be bullied around. At the very onset of the call, Godless asked Chip what his thoughts were about creationism to determine whether or not Chip was as kooky as my brother Jared. That's my words, not Godless's. But the sarcastic insinuation was clear when Godless asked this question, and it did set the stage for a more abrasive beginning than it needed to be. Very soon into the conversation, Chip tried to interject some thoughts while Godless was talking, and Godless didn't take kindly to this at all, telling Chip, "You're going to have to let me finish if we're going to have a conversation." Chip said, "I don't really have to do anything, but go ahead." Godless expressed his disapproval for the tone and comment that Chip made, and Chip basically said, "I don't really care." Now, after that, Godless was pretty irate and went on a small tirade saying things along the lines of, "You call yourself a Christian, Joey, what in the world do you have me on here? Like, what is this?" Basically very much so disapproving and disgusted by how things were playing out. Now, I just responded. I was like, okay, I think we're having a conversation here. It's natural for people to want to interject while someone is talking, and I was just like, hey, let's just talk. Let's do this. Godless said he wouldn't until he got an apology. So he demanded an apology. Chip's response, "You're not going to get an apology." Godless was out, hung up, and politely, he was like, he didn't just hang up. He said bye. Now, the following conversation that you're going to hear took place right after Godless hung up the phone. Due to his wishes, the conversation won't be aired, the conversation we had with Godless. So a little behind-the-scenes info is that the next day, Chip reflected on all of this, and he agrees he was caught off guard by Godless's approach and believes he could have handled it better. I have to agree. I think Chip could have been more accommodating to Godless's request not to be interrupted, even though I was surprised at how aggressive Godless was right out the gate. I also think that Jared and I probably did Chip a disservice by telling him how abrasive and antagonistic Godless could be. But all in all, you know what? Humans are humans. We make mistakes, and mistakes are basically a part of being humans. So in conclusion, my assessment, if you want it, I didn't see any reason for Godless to get so over-the-top agitated from the get-go, but I also think Chip should have been more compliant so early on in the conversation. After the three of us assessed the conversation we just had with Godless, we hit Chip up for some discussions about masturbation, marriage, and how the church is handling this issue that they call homosexuality. 3 things that we never talk about on this podcast. All right. Hope you guys enjoy. Hello?
Hello?
I'm still here. Told you, Chip.
Well, wow. I didn't think he'd be so thin-skinned.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I mean,
I got a sense that was going to happen last time we talked, though, so it doesn't surprise me at all.
I mean, in my opinion, he validated the ruggedness of our beliefs and the fragility of his.
Well, not only that though, Chip, but you were talking about entropy and thermodynamics.
Right.
That is the bedrock of modern physics.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Now, here's what's interesting to me is and I'm curious, why wouldn't you give him an apology?
What would I be apologizing for? Being passionate?
No, I think because he took it as you interrupting. So I guess, I don't know.
Well, that's weird, Joey, because every time we do these podcasts, someone is always interrupting.
Well, I honestly, I mean, because I like the guy, but I thought it was crazy that he has a problem with interrupting. He interrupts all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
My deal, Joey, is we're first of all, he took over the conversation right from the beginning,
Right.
and we're all expecting a little bit of small talk. He doesn't say, "Hey, Chip, tell me a little about yourself." He immediately goes to, what he would apparently consider a core issue.
Dogma.
Yeah, dogma.
It's atheistic dogma.
Yeah, and so in a sense, he's the one who pushed the, let's go ahead and get into it right away button.
And it was a passive insult of me from the get-go too.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, he insulted me by saying, like, what kind of Christian am I dealing with? Someone like an idiot, basically like an idiot like Jared who believes in, creation.
Yeah, and the point is, what I meant when I said I don't care is, I don't care if things get a little out of hand. I don't care.
Right.
And I assumed he was robust enough that he realized, we wouldn't be in this stuff if we weren't passionate about it.
Right.
Well, that's the problem. I think he's a little bit too passionate.
Well, I think the thing about it is, if you have to fight that hard to defend what you believe, probably deep down you don't believe it.
Right.
So here's, I mean, so Chip, I have a relationship with you, and I think you probably know by now that even if I was challenging right now, it wouldn't matter. You'd be fine with that. And I'm not challenging you. I'm actually surprised because of how I have seen you approach counseling situations.
Right.
If I would have predicted anything, I would have predicted that Chip would have probably accommodated Godless and been like, okay, wait a second, there's some more sensitivity here than what I originally anticipated. Okay, I am sorry that I came across as rude. Go ahead and finish your...
But Joey, I don't think I did.
Right.
I think I'm in a game I've never played before.
Yeah.
If anybody should be gracious, he should be.
Yeah.
In other words, I meant what I said. What would I apologize for?
Right.
Or interrupting me. And if he would have let me say, I would have said, Godless, I'm just passionate. And we'll figure it out as we get into the call 2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
But I mean, in other words, I just think it was just an inappropriate, the proportion of his response. Is it okay for him to say, okay, that, kind of like set the guardrails? I get that. But to be that sensitive, whatever. I mean, and Joey, just to respond to what you said about me in counseling settings, this isn't a counseling setting.
Right.
And I thought about it as I was, kind of getting ready for it today. And even tonight after eating my dinner, I was thinking, how should I kind of posture my heart? And I thought, this isn't necessarily an evangelistic call.
Right.
I mean, if it turns into that, that's fine. But my posture was, I'm going to just be chilled. But my deal, Joey, is I'm not going to be bullied either.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a wimpy, I got to take the low road Christian.
Right.
You act like a turd, then come big or don't come.
Yeah. Well, what I think, and if it's okay with you guys, we're probably gonna roll with all of this as an episode. So, but I think the one thing that I would love to say to Godless as well is, first of all, I think the assumption that he's making about Christians is what gets Christians in trouble, because we believe the same thing. We believe that we're like these perfect people that are always going to make people feel good, and that we're always going to say the right things and say them exactly how. And it's just like, no, wait a second. That's not even the gospel we're supposed to be teaching. The gospel that we believe is that there's no difference between us and the world other than what Jesus is doing for us. And so that right there, the whole you call yourself a Christian thing, I'm just like, well, okay, well, what do you think that means when I call myself a Christian? That I'm like better than you? Because that's certainly not what I meant.
Right.
And what I would really like to ask Godless right now, and I actually did email him and said, hey, you want to give it another whirl? But what I would like to ask him is, well, he doesn't think it was cool for you to interrupt him, but why in the world would he escalate it into like a yelling match? I mean, that's like, whoa, what in the world? So I say that, and at the same time, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he had a bad day. Maybe he heard something wrong. I don't know, but as much as I like the guy, I did think it was. I think that as he has a very strong leaning towards atheism, you're not going to get anywhere in talking to Christians like they're dumb. And I don't even understand what would be the purpose or motivation of a Christian talking to an atheist like they're dumb, or an atheist talking to a Christian like they're dumb. To me, that's just unproductive.
It makes the atheist feel more confident in his position.
Right.
Because when you caricature Christianity as a bunch of dumb backwood hillbillies, it makes your position that much more palatable for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's an easy straw man that he sets up on a basis.
But also it's partly our own fault. I mean, over the centuries, the church has been so flippin' dogmatic about things. The church has been so resistant to change, resistant to scientific innovation, et cetera. I mean, gosh, dude, let's be honest and go back to the world is flat.
Yeah.
So some of it is our own fault. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We just honestly, gosh, dude, there's times we just sound ignorant.
Yeah. Yeah, but still, though, so imagine if atheism is absolutely correct, and I would say there's obviously probability-wise there's got to be a probability for it. I believe it's a lot less than obviously a lot of people. But imagine if an atheist is right. Well, as an informed person that knows something that other people don't know, is it the most strategic approach to talk to them like they're stupid, or do you want to have an understanding of where they came from, what their background, why do they believe what they believe, and help them along? Like in other words, when I walked into a middle school classroom and I realized my sixth graders weren't even at a third grade level math, my strategy was not to say, you guys are insanely stupid with this math. Like, who taught y'all? This is ridiculous. We're not going to get anywhere this year because, hey, you know what? Game over for the rest of the year. They're not going to listen to anything I have to say because I just called them dumb.
Right.
So it just doesn't seem to be advantageous even for him. But I would say, here's what's super interesting. Yet again, something else I would want to ask him is, I'm not on this seminary kick. I think a lot of the seminary stuff is stupid, but I got a master's degree and it's not even accredited in America, but it kicked my ass. I mean, it was a major in-depth studies, and it was through some brilliant scientific theologian doctors in India. So this is a seminary outside of India, and the first coursework was basically about apologetics, and it actually went into some of what we just tasted as far as the approach that an atheist would take in a debate. It has to be to dominate right away and to get the upper hand in making the other people look stupid. And I wonder if that's Godless's personality or if that was actual strategy, because there's a lot of people that come on Pastor with No Answers, including Chris Date, who I consider him a friend. I like the guy, and we laugh about this, but I'm like, dude, This is not a debate. Like you don't have to try to win this thing. That's not really the point of this. But I think someone like Godless, or maybe even Chris as well, they can't see it any other way. If they're going to talk to someone that doesn't agree with what they're saying, then it's just automatic debate sort of thing, and they have to.
Well, I think too, he comes on the program that's a Christian podcast with 3 other Christians. I think, of course, he's going to be defensive.
Yeah.
I think that's only natural.
Yeah. And again, my issue is not did he have a right to be bothered by what I did. My issue was why he took it so far so fast.
Right.
In other words, if we were sitting around a drinking a beer together, he would have just been like, hey, dude, let's work it out like this. But it did go that way. It went from 0 to 60. You're being rude or whatever. I can't remember what he said. And I'm just like, okay, time out here. You're trying
Chip, do you think that could be a respect issue? Like, I don't think he respects me at all. And I think the moment you started opening your mouth, I think he lost respect for you. So I think it's just, he had no respect for us, honestly.
Yeah.
That's why I think it escalated so quickly, because number one, he doesn't respect us as intellectuals. And number two, he feels like he's, giving up his time to be on this Christian podcast. I think maybe that's part of the reason why it escalated so quickly, is a lack of respect.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I see what you're saying, and I surely am okay with him having that view.
Oh, me too. I'm not bothered by that at all.
Yeah, but
so Chip, from a counseling experience perspective, do you think that there's more to the story than just him trying to get the upper hand in a debate? Like, it just seems like in other words, the angry outburst was either a genuine response to thinking that you were being rude with him, or it was even strategy on his part, or his emotions got escalated because there's something else going on. I guess I would venture to think that it was probably bad day plus he did think you were being rude, and he's just like, well, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, and I mean, again, my point is, let's just say for the sake of the moment that I'm being rude, that I was rude. I would say it was rudeness of a level 1.
Right.
His response was a 3. So my deal is, I'm not, for him to say, I want you to apologize, he wants me to apologize for his 3.
Yeah.
When all I did was what normal, civil, unamped up people would see as just figuring out the ground rules of this conversation.
Right.
And so my resistance was to a response at a 3, 4, or a 5 to something that was a 1 or a 2.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. What do y'all even remember what he was talking about, and what Chip you were trying to interject?
Yeah, well, he was talking about the whole. I had said that you can't put a Volkswagen out in the yard and it turns into a BMW, and he was saying, that's ridiculous, and going to the fact that those are inanimate, man-made objects, and whatever. I mean, obviously, we don't know where he was fully going.
Yeah. But what do you remember? What you were trying to interject? Because I don't even remember.
I know. Oh no, Joey. I mean, I sort of halfway remember, but no, not specifically.
Yeah.
And Joey, I would say too, this is why debating an atheist never works, because Chip and I can look at the evidence one way, he can look at the exact same evidence a totally different way, and we're always talking past each other.
Yeah.
You're never going to make any headway.
Well, it depends on, okay, I'll give you that as far as the debate aspect, but I've definitely experienced very healthy, constructive conversations with atheists, for sure. It was very enlightening on both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Like Scott Mellinger, for instance, we had him on here, and I think talking to him brings a lot of perspective into why he believes what he believes. Like this is one of those things, Chip, that causes me a little angst in my heart, is when someone very sincere, like it's a friend of ours, Scott, he's been on here, and he was just like, look, people talk to me or about me like I decided not to believe after being a Christian for so many years. He's just like, don't you think I want to believe? Like, that's like I want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like I'm deciding, okay, this isn't for me. It's
Yeah.
I just can't believe anymore. And that one's a tough one because I'm just like, well, wait a second. If someone seeks after God, it seems like, the result of that would be God giving that person faith. So maybe that's just maybe someone is actually saying that, but there is some resistance there that they're not even aware of or that they don't want to come clean with. But to me, I hear it as a very sincere seeker that's like, yeah, I used to be a Christian and I just can't believe anymore. Like, why would you say that's a bad thing? I wish I could believe, I just can't.
Yeah. I mean, and typically my posture towards someone who doesn't believe, and obviously that's a one word description of something that's much more complex than that. But my posture is that I consider one of the greatest gifts life's ever given me is the awareness of God, the awareness of his goodness, the awareness of his character, the awareness of what he's done for us. And I consider that a gift that I didn't earn and I don't deserve. And what I mean is the awareness, even not just what he did is a gift,
Yeah.
but even being aware of it is a gift.
Yeah.
So like my posture toward Godless is not, argumentative. And again, I don't mean this in any incriminating way, but we didn't set the topic.
Right.
I never would have brought up creation probably.
Right.
But if you're going to bring up creation, I don't want to hear these sad, tired rationalizations that if you just take the right stuff, throw it in a pot, and leave it for a few billion years, life comes out.
Right.
And that takes more faith than what we believe.
Yeah. 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 And Godless, if you're listening, and hopefully you and I will talk again, but just as well as I do that if the conversation would have continued, there is an element of rudeness that you carry out in the whole conversation. So I am curious of why the immediate set off. And I think that's a fair statement to say that you get pretty heated and pretty passionate about these sorts of conversations. And even the last time we did this with Mark Solomon, I mean, there was some pretty brutal antagonistic words, which I actually can live with. I'm okay with. But it is actually kind of a mystery why you were set off. So anyway, sorry that you were offended, and we probably won't be able to bring this conversation back together, I would assume.
And the bottom line, Joey, I'm sorry that he was offended.
Yeah.
But in the context of the conversation, I'm not sorry for it. how many minutes in were we? 3, 5, 7? I don't know. And so, 3, I mean, it's just kind of, you spar a little bit.
Right.
So, I mean, I just think it was an overreaction. I don't think the reaction was wrong per se, but it was just like, whoa, no, I'm not going to bow down to that.
Yeah.
I felt like I was being backed in a corner, and I don't do well with that.
Right. Well, Jared probably is not surprised. I was actually surprised of the immediate outburst. Like I was like, whoa, why is he? Whoa, why is he mad? What's he mad about? Sort of thing. Because I would expect more. Like if I was in his shoes and I was already annoyed or taken back by the guests, at the very least, make a lighthearted comment that they know there's truth into it. Just say, wow, you're an asshole. Okay, go ahead and say what you wanted to say.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
right.
Like there's definitely other ways of going about setting forth, hey, I'm frustrated and annoyed already with you.
Right.
But
I mean, and that's a great way to put it, Joey, because that's probably part of what pushed me bad in the wrong direction. I was just like, call me a jerk, say, hey, dude, calm down, or what? Not that I was all worked up. I was just whatever. But then just going to the whole apology card, I was like, wow, that was just weird to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to say much about it because I don't want to be disrespectful of him, but it was just weird to me to get there that quickly. I mean, it was like, and there we were. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
They kind of reminded me a little bit of the L.A. Marzulli Matt episode, where I think Matt was really pushing him really hard. And I think L.A. Marzulli took it pretty much in stride and only got really angry at the very end. But I think Matt was riding him way harder than Chip was with Godless, honestly.
Well, I think that was somewhat of a different situation just because from Matt's perspective, he was like, well, wait a second. How are you saying this picture is proof? Because other people could say, no, it's not proof. And honestly, Jared, you and I lean more towards the conspiracy, Nephilim and all that stuff. But I don't think that his, like, you can't bring out an elongated skull and assume that that's going to suffice for evidence, especially when you're on camera and nobody can touch it or test it. So
yeah, I guess, but I think every single shred of evidence that he brought up was shot down immediately. So it was kind of a very unfruitful conversation.
Yeah. So I did tell Matt that. I was just like, dude, why we could have had a conversation, There
right.
could have been some,
and there could have been other critiques too. You can critique the evidence as being authentic, but have other explanations for it.
Right.
That was never brought up.
All right. Well, Chip, tell us about masturbation, man. No. Hey, while we do have you on here, I will hit you up with one subject, and it's a subject that, in my experience, people aren't getting sick of talking about because it just touches so many people's lives and is such a it's a tough one. So we just released a Bad Christian episode. We did it live last night, and I'm pretty sure it's out right now. And it was with Trey Pearson of Everyday Sunday, which is apparently a big time Christian band. I've been kind of out of that scene for a while, so I actually had never heard of them, but they're a pretty big deal. And he's been married for a handful of years, and from the get go, he realized, man, this sucks. He didn't come right out and say this, but definitely, clearly, intentionally alluded to him and his wife's sex life was a challenge from the get go. He was working extremely hard to make it work. He wanted to be, committed to her and all this stuff. So, to make a long story short, he's gay, and he basically said to her, he said, "Look, because he's total Christian, believes in Jesus. It's not I'm gay and I'm leaving the church because the church is hateful. It's I'm gay and I'm a Christian." And so he told his wife, he said, "Look, when I took my vows, that's a serious thing. If you want to try to make this work, having knowledge of where I'm at sexually, then I am willing to try to make it work. But obviously, we may be in agreement that wouldn't be a healthy thing." So they're separating, they're going to get a divorce and all that stuff. But it's just like, what does the church need to do to change how we are interacting with real people that we disagree with? And I hope you don't mind me saying that Chip, you definitely land on the side of you do believe that is a sinful lifestyle. I would say I probably have more questions than feeling certain about that. But if I had to pick a stance, which that's what I think is the problem. I'm not convinced that we need to. I would say, yeah, it seems like the Bible is clear, but maybe I'm missing something. And I've read some pretty compelling stuff that real people that are researching the Bible in a real honest way, and they're just like, wait a second, I'm not sold on this. But we've talked about this before. Where is the church dropping the ball on this?
I mean, that's a pretty big question. So let me just kind of ramble a second, and you push me wherever you want to push me. But it was jarring to me speaking to a young guy, and he strong believer, very involved in his church, and I mean, like just in every way, strong Christian young man who clearly battled with same-sex attraction.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and he used this phrase, "I'm a gay Christian."
Right.
And I realized that I'd never really figured out what I was going to do with that phrase, a gay Christian.
Yeah.
And so what it made me think about is, are those two words unconnectable? In other words, can they not be connected? See what I'm trying to say?
Right.
In other words, you can be an angry Christian. You can be an alcoholic Christian. You can be anxious Christian. You can be a depressed Christian.
Yeah.
You can be a lustful Christian. You can be a greedy Christian. But can you be a gay Christian? And I hope you see where I'm going.
Yeah.
The answer to all of the above is yes, you can.
Right.
So for me, where we're missing the boat is in every facet of our culture, we cater to the masses. In other words, we address topics in the simplest, quickest, sound-bitey-est way.
Yeah.
Meaning, we don't want to think. We don't want to be made uncomfortable. We don't want to have to break something down. So what has this got to do with the subject? I think we don't really properly understand and teach how we become the way we are, which then opens the door for lots and lots and lots of grace for people.
Right.
Because I do not believe, I'm not saying in every case, there are probably cases what I'm about to say is not true. But in general, I do not believe homosexuality is a choice.
Yeah.
Can it be? Of course it can. But I believe
not the orientation. You're saying can the lifestyle be a choice? Of course, but
yeah. Like again, all the examples you want to use just they fall short. But there's things built into my DNA, my multi-generational stuff, my early life experiences that have created the set of strength, weaknesses, and challenges with which I have to bring into my Christianity and seek to put under the lordship of my delightful, wonderful Savior.
Yeah.
So I'm completely comfortable that Joey's got a different set of all of the above. Jared's got a different set. I've got a different set. And I'm able to look at somebody who says, I am a gay Christian. And let's just say that we know that theologically we're on the same page with what we would all agree are the core essential doctrines of Christianity. I don't think gayness is one of them.
Yeah.
So, and then here's, now I'm not, but you already said, I do believe the Bible teaches that the gay lifestyle, whatever, is not in the approved category.
Right.
But I get how someone can be over there and wrestle with it and not agree with what I just said.
Yeah.
And marry someone of the same sex and still in their heart of hearts believe in Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. And just because of some of where it goes, yeah, that's going to affect your involvement in different aspects of leadership, influence, whatever. But I don't know that I'm prepared to say, if you believe the same things I believe, if you try to orient your life around the same core things I believe about Jesus and God the Father, and et cetera, your gayness is not enough for me to say you're not going to heaven when you die.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Now, what would you say to the Christians? Because I'm going to throw all the Christian responses to you that I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, wait a second, Chip. If you're making a conscious decision to live habitually in sin, and you're making a choice to not serve God, you're going to serve your own selfish, lustful thoughts. So you're disqualifying yourself from being and believe me, I'll I'll eat that up and spit it out and destroy this question, but I want to hear what you have to say about that.
I mean, my posture is this: anything I know about God and what he expects of me is a gift. I believe in what the Bible calls revelation knowledge, meaning there are things we cannot really know unless God reveals them to us. So anything I know that's helpful to me in my relationship with God and understanding of creation and reality, I consider it a gift. Paul talked about, in his prayer, open the eyes of my heart, So if my eyes see things and I'm sitting here talking to a brother or sister who doesn't see what I see, I'm not mad at them. My real posture is, God, thank you that I see what I see, because I feel the echo of truth in it. But I'm not going to judge them that they don't see what I see.
Yeah.
And I think politics would be sweeter if we could just think that way. And then my deal becomes, brother or sister, I'm going to believe you're living the best you know how with a clear conscience before God.
Yeah.
And you know what, dude, lady, ma'am, that's between you and God. And I'm going to love you. I'm going to respect you. But I'm going to ask you to respect my posture when you ask if I can do this, or will I marry you, or whatever. I might come to your wedding, but I couldn't perform your wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an interesting topic, because I've had people ask me for advice because they definitely were like, yeah, this is a sin, but these are my friends. Mm-hmm. So would you support your friends by going to a gay wedding, even though you don't believe that it's right?
I mean, obviously it would depend on the situation, but I could imagine situations where I would do that. Yes.
Yeah.
But I could also imagine situations where I wouldn't. I mean, if it was a godless wedding with flagrant in your,
you mean with
no pun intended
we just had?
No,
if he was getting married?
No.
Like, hell no, I wouldn't go to that guy's wedding.
Godless, I did not mean that. I didn't mean it that way. I promise you, dude. No, but if it was just a flagrantly anti, almost making fun of the ridiculous belief that this could ever be wrong, I couldn't be a part of that. Yeah. But if it was a same-sex couple who believed that in the eyes of God they were getting married, I could probably go to that wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, a handful of questions to wrap this up. Chip, thanks for your time. The episode definitely took on its own form. So 3 questions. First question, is it wrong to lust after other women if they are your friend?
So it's wrong if they're your friend, but it's not if they're not? Is that what the question is?
Okay, well, if you're going to laugh at my questions, then is it a sin?
All right, Joey, don't say a friend sent this in. So this is really your question.
These are my questions. I've been praying over these. All right.
All right, is this person married or not married?
They're married or not married. It doesn't matter. Can they lust after their
But my answer is just subtly different. Like, if you're married, your spouse, male or female, if you're the husband or the wife, this is true. Your spouse owns 100% of your sexuality. So
but this is your friend. Why can't you lust after your friend if it's your friend?
Why does that make a difference?
Chip, you know Joey by now, man.
All right, Chip. Well,
Joey, hold on. Is this your way of asking on the air if it's okay for you to lust after me?
Whoa!
Is that where this is going?
Yeah, Joey, I wanted to see what Chip thought about the gay issue, and now I want to know if I can. All right, so next question: is it a sin to kill if you truly hate the person and you'd sleep better at night?
Wow, Joey.
Okay,
gosh.
You don't want to
listen. What kind of twisted mind even comes up with a question like that?
All right, last question. Can you masturbate to porn if your wife is sleeping?
Let's answer the last one.
Can you masturbate?
If you kill someone just so you can sleep better, you're just a dog.
Okay,
you're just a dog.
Can you masturbate to porn if your wife is sleeping?
Wow, in the bed or out of the bed?
Is it okay to drug your wife first to put her to sleep?
Hey, I have to admit, and Priscilla is aware, there have been times where
I'm not sure I want to hear this, Joey.
I definitely wanted to have sex, but I didn't have the heart to wake her up. So I had nice thoughts about her, and yeah,
that's romantic, man.
All right, Joey, honestly, does Priscilla get a warm, fuzzy feeling when you tell her that?
No, she does not. But she has a pretty. I hate using the word level-headed because it makes everybody else sound like they're not. So I don't mean it in that way. If you're totally repulsed by the idea of your husband masturbating, I don't think that's bad. But Priscilla really does have a pretty casual approach. Like, she obviously does not want me lusting after other women, but she also doesn't have this whole "you should never touch yourself" sort of thing. I mean, she doesn't have that.
Right.
So, all
right, then back to what I said back to you. Why doesn't she get a warm, fuzzy feeling when you say that happened or you do that? Why does it not sit well with her?
I don't know if the thought of anybody masturbating is a warm, fuzzy thought.
Well, I mean, it is with some people, but that's another whatever. But I mean, my point is to get behind that, and I think somehow it's tied to some kind of an understanding of the tension that you're feeling, the hunger, the need, whatever. I would rather we figure out how to manage that between the two of us than you just taking it off in the corner and dealing with it yourself.
Yeah, but so you would say have an agreement with Priscilla that there are times I can wake her up.
That's one possibility.
Yeah.
Or there's times when you go to sleep horny.
Yeah.
So you just take turns?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what if I truly can't sleep, and I know at the end of the day this isn't necessarily a sin?
You got to look at that possession arrow, man.
Yeah, and I also am not naive enough to think that as long as I think about my wife, it's never a sin. I mean, then I could resort to doing that and never have any intimacy with my wife. So
right.
I'm not that black and white, but yeah.
Well, I do believe, and we've talked about this before. I do believe that we focus on the wrong part of the equation. I do believe the most destructive thing is not the masturbation itself, but the pornography and images that typically fuel it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would agree with that premise that you're kind of saying there, because I believe if a guy, this is going to sound strange, so don't write me off.
Yeah.
If a guy lived this way, I like to have sex 4 times a week. My wife's good with 2. We're gonna meet in the middle, meaning there's probably 1 time a week I need a release of something that she's just not into. Now, here's my deal. All right, dude, here's the thing. You cannot think about any other woman.
Yeah.
When that's happening.
Yeah.
Now, people hear me say stuff like that and they think, oh, well, you're just telling men they can masturbate. Trust me, whoever you are, that's not what I'm saying.
Right.
Because a man can't really masturbate without generating some scenario. And if he can do that, even if his wife is the leading lady in the movie, it's not going to be a movie she would ever be a part of. Because the scenario he's going to create is one that she would probably not create, which is why he's thinking it in the first place. That
is true. What if a husband, Jared's just like, can we effing stop talking about this already? What if you could discipline yourself to think about your wife and think of what you guys would do? Does that make a difference?
You mean like what you typically would do when you make love?
Yeah. So in other words, you don't get out there with your thoughts. You just and these really are like I guess I can personally apply these questions, but that's not my
I got you.
Ask. I'm just curious.
I mean, again, for me, if you make the issue porn and self-serving scenarios, Now think about that for a second. If you make the issue porn and self-serving scenarios, if you make that the issue, I'm not allowed to do that. Masturbation is just not going to be that big an issue. Now, I don't mean it's going to just magically disappear, but if you start going down that path, you're going to have to start figuring out, well, why am I excited by this scenario? Why am I turned on by this?
Yeah.
And my point is, if you make the issue, draw the line on masturbation itself, the act of masturbating, you're missing the point. You're attacking the fruit of an issue, not the root of the issue. And the root of the issue is a totally ungodlike amplification of a perfectly healthy desire. God did make men sexual beings, but not to the degree our culture.
Yeah. Chip Judd, thanks for your time. You're a regular here. You're PWNA family, and thanks for putting up with us. And we'll have you back on soon.
And again, I do apologize for offending Godless.
Okay, is that one of those apologies that Godless would say that that's not enough?
I have no idea.
Well, that's definitely not I think that was a sincere, legitimate apology. The apologies that I think is are funny is, I'm sorry that what's a messed up apology? Like I am sorry.
I'm sorry that what I did made you feel that way.
Or I'm sorry that you're so sensitive that what I said rocked your boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Chip.